Today, you'll learn how to take regular verbs like hold, put, and pull, and completely change their meaning by turning them into phrasal verbs. Hold off, put off, and pull off. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started. First, let's talk about the regular verb hold. You know what this means, right? To grasp or carry something in one's hand. But what about the phrasal verb to hold off? Do you know what this means? This means to delay or postpone something. Should we sign the contract? Your coworker might ask, and you can say, let's hold off. Now, you can end there. It's a complete sentence, or you can continue back and commonly use the word until. Let's hold off until we hear back from HR. Now, you can also be more precise and describe the action. You would add an additional preposition. Let's hold off on signing the contract until we get more details.
These 10 counties decided to hold off and wait until 2018 to launch their exhibit.
Now, of course, you can put this in the negative. Don't postpone, don't delay. For example, don't hold off on improving. Notice that gerund verb, because on is a preposition, on improving your English. Do you agree with that advice? If you do, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. Now let's review one sentence that includes both the regular verb and the phrasal verb. Can you think of your own sentence? Here's mine. Let's hold a meeting to discuss holding off on the project. Don't worry about taking notes. I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's talk about the verb put. Of course, you know that means to place something in a specific position. But what about put off when we turn this into the phrasal verb? This also means to postpone or delay something. For example, they put off something, the wedding, until next year.
I told her it was stupid to put off the wedding just because the hall was gone and she flipped out.
Now, I'm sure you're wondering, but Jennifer, what's the difference between hold off and put off? Great question. Hold off generally is used when you're delaying because you're waiting for more information. But put off is more general. It can be for any reason. For example, they put off getting married. Now notice all of phrasal verbs use prepositions, so your verb that follows is in the ing form, the gerund form. They put off getting married until next year. This is just in general. They're not waiting for more information. It could be for any reason. Now our sentence that combines both. For example, we put off cleaning the garage, we delayed, until next week. Remember, you can use that word until. But we did put the books on the shelf. Can you think of a better one? Now let's talk about the verb pull. Of course, that's exert force to move something closer. But what about pull off? You probably know this one. It's very common. If you pull something off, it means to succeed in achieving something difficult. And that's important. It has to be something difficult. For example, he pulled off something, an incredible victory. So it implies it was difficult. Now, we often use this after we do something successful, but it was difficult. I can't believe we pulled it off. So maybe you had a very tight deadline. You didn't think you could achieve it, but you did.
Wow, we pulled it off.
Now let's try one sentence using both. She pulled the chair closer as I told her how I pulled off improving my speaking skills in only 30 days. That's definitely something difficult, right? Can you pull it off? I'm here to help. Now, of course, the verb break means to separate something into pieces by force. What about break off, the phrasal verb? This means to suddenly stop or end something. This is often used with relationships, agreements, or conversations. For example, I can't believe she broke off her engagement. So she was engaged, which means she agreed to get married, but then she broke it off. She ended the engagement. She's no longer going to get married.
Obviously, I felt it deep enough to break off my engagement, change my entire life, and tell all of you.
Now, if it's obvious that you're talking about her engagement, you can say, I can't believe she broke it off. So you can use the pronoun it to replace engagement. Now let's try both in one sentence. You broke my heart by breaking off our engagement. Of course, the verb call means to contact someone by phone, but what about call off? This means to cancel an event. So an event could be a meeting. They called off the meeting. They canceled it.
With the rise of jihadist violence, they began to receive threats to call off their events, which they refused to heed.
Now again, you might be wondering what's the difference between break off and call off. Well, break off is with relationships or agreements. They're personal and emotional, like an engagement. But call off is used with events. These can be business events or community events. So you can say, we broke off our engagement. We ended our engagement. But you can say we called off the wedding because the wedding is an event. So you can say we canceled the wedding. We called off the wedding. Now let's try one sentence with both. She called her friend to let her know that the organizers called off, canceled the event. Of course, the verb cut means to divide or remove something using a sharp tool. What about cut off? Well, this is when you interrupt or stop someone or something abruptly. For example, she cut me off in the middle of my story. So I was talking and then she said, oh, I want to tell you something. She cut me off.
So I started to say that, and she just cut me right off.
Notice in the clip, Obama said, she just cut me right off. Using right is there for emphasis. It's emphasizing the fact that Barack was cut off. Now, you can use this more politely and say, sorry to cut you off, but I accidentally cut the ribbon too short. So notice that one sentence used both. Now, the regular verb drop is when you let something fall on purpose or accidentally. But what about drop off? You know this one, right? This is when you deliver something or someone to a location. For example, you can say to your friend or your sister, I'll drop you off at the station. Now, you could ask, when is the package being dropped off? Notice this is the passive voice because the package is receiving the action, not doing the action. Let's try one with both. She dropped her pen as she dropped off the reports. The regular verb get, of course, means to obtain or receive something. What about get off? You definitely need to know this one. It means to exit a form of transportation. It can also mean end work for the day. Both of these are very commonly used. You can ask, where do we get off? Now, this would be for transportation. Where do we get off the train, subway, bus, plane, or boat?
That means you will probably be running late when you get off the train.
But we do not use this with car or van or truck. You would say, please get out of my car to mean exit. Now, you can also ask, what time do you get off? This means what time do you get off work, but you don't need to add the word work. And it means what time do you finish working for the day? What time do you get off? Now let's try one sentence with both. He got some advice, he received some advice from a stranger before he got off the train, before he left the train. Now, of course, the regular verb give is to offer or present something to someone. But what about give off? Ooh. This isn't the most common, but it is useful to know. This means to emit or produce something such as light, heat, or a smell. For example, the fire gave off a lot of smoke. So the fire emitted, produced a lot of smoke.
All things that gave off heat were part of an irreversible process that was happening everywhere.
You can use this in a more positive way. The candles gave off a warm glow as she gave a heartfelt speech. So notice I used both in that one sentence. Now, of course, the verb go means to move from one place to another. What about go off? If something goes off, it means it activates or suddenly makes noise. This is commonly used with alarms and detectors. So you hear this every day, I imagine. But what if you say, oh no, my alarm started going off at midnight? So for some reason, your alarm activated, produced noise at midnight.
I set an alarm, the alarm went off, I did get out of bed, but then I snoozed it.
Or someone might say, open the window before the smoke detector goes off, before the smoke detector activates. Now let's try one sentence with both. Let's go outside until the alarm stops going off. So notice, stops going off. Let's talk about keep. Of course, that means to retain or maintain something. But what about keep off? This means to avoid stepping on or using something. I automatically think of signs that I commonly see that say, please keep off the grass. Please do not step on the grass. I also see signs that say, please keep your pets off the grass. Because, of course, pets can damage it.
And so they got to the tomb of the unknown soldier, and there was a sign that said, keep off the grass. And they thought, dare we?
Now let's look at one sentence with both. She kept off the muddy path, so she didn't go on. She kept off the muddy path to keep her shoes dry. The regular verb let means to allow or permit. What about let off? I really like this phrasal verb. This means to excuse someone from punishment or responsibility. For example, the judge let him off. This means the judge did not punish him. Maybe she gave him a warning. So you could continue that thought and say the judge let him off with a warning. So you add that additional preposition with and then something, a warning. So he received a warning instead of punishment.
She was not going to let me off the hook. And at the time, I wasn't happy about it, but now I'm glad she pressed me like that.
Did you notice that Barack added a few additional words? She wasn't going to let me off the hook. So you could say my boss let me off the hook. So you just add the two words the hook. This means my boss didn't punish me even though I deserved it. So it's a positive thing for me. Let's try one sentence with both. I let my brother borrow my car and he got a parking ticket. Thankfully, the officer let me off, didn't punish me, when I told him it was my brother's fault. So I threw my brother under the bus. Now let's talk about kick. This means, of course, to strike with the foot, but what about kick off? Do you know this one? This means to start an event or an activity. This is commonly used with sports. The game kicked off at 7 p.m. The game started. Or you can ask, when are we kicking off the project? This is commonly used in a business context. It means when are we starting the project?
and they're very non-digital people, but it's almost like kicking off a discussion.
So let's look at one sentence with both. She kicked the ball to kick off the game, which is where this phrasal verb comes from. The verb rip means to tear something apart forcefully, but what about rip off? Native speakers use this a lot. This means to cheat or overcharge someone. She totally ripped me off. She told me this is a real Louis Vuitton bag. So she cheated me. I paid a lot of money for the bag and it was a fake.
Well, I hope he made a mistake because he ripped me off, so I hope he got ripped off.
Now, we commonly use this with the verb feel. So ripped off is in the ed form, which means it's being used as an adjective. I feel ripped off every time I buy food at the airport, which is true. I feel like I'm being cheated. Now, you can also say $5 for a bottle of water. What a ripoff. So notice here, a ripoff, this is the noun form. So get comfortable with the different forms, the active verb, the adjective form, and the noun form. Let's look at one example using both, and we'll use the active verb. The store ripped her off. The store cheated her, claiming she ripped her jeans on purpose and therefore couldn't return them. Of course, the verb run means to move quickly on foot. What about run off? This has a similar meaning. This means to leave suddenly, often to escape. And the people are usually running when they run off. But it's not a requirement. They can run off in a car, for example, because it's just leave suddenly. So you can say, I can't believe Ross ran off with his family's savings. So Ross left suddenly and he took his family's savings. So often this is used in a very negative way.
And our middleman, long story short, ran off with our money.
Oh no.
And we never heard from him again.
Or you can say, I can't believe Ross ran off with his boss's wife, which is how this is also commonly used. So two people who usually shouldn't be together leave suddenly, and they leave their partners behind.
My wife ran off with my business partner after embezzling $1 million from my frozen yogurt franchise.
So let's use one sentence with both. She ran after the thief when she saw him running off with a stolen bag. Now you have 15 new phrasal verbs in your vocabulary. Do you want me to keep helping you learn phrasal verbs? If you do, put let's go, put let's go in the comments. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And you can keep improving your English with this lesson right now.